Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a deep dive into business ethics.
Right.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Maybe sounds a bit dry.
A little bit, yeah. Maybe academic?
Exactly. But trust us, this isn't about some dusty textbook. We're really uncovering the surprising ways ethical choices impact your daily life, your future career, and frankly, the kind of society we all live in.
It really is the invisible architecture of trust, isn't it? Sort of the scaffolding holding everything together.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it, yeah. So we've pulled together insights from a couple of key sources. One's a presentation called Building a Better Future, The Importance of Business Ethics, and the other is Business Ethics, A Compass for a Better Future.
Good stuff there.
Yeah. And our mission today is basically to unpack these, pull out the really eye-opening bits, and, connect the dots so you get why ethical choices aren't just like a nice to have. They're absolutely crucial.
They're foundational.
Right. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with something relatable. A scenario that shows that personal ripple effect, the snowball effect they talk about.
Okay.
Think about Amy. She's a student studying abroad, maybe in America. She's at a party, police show up, and, in a panic. She uses her roommate's ID to avoid getting into trouble.
Okay, yeah, split-second decision. We're just trying to get out of a tight spot. Seems minor, maybe.
You'd think so. But this is where the psychology of it gets really interesting.
How so?
Well, she gets caught again later, and instead of just coming clean, she tries to lie her way out of it again, making up more stuff to cover the first lie.
So it starts small and just grows.
Exactly. It escalates. Yeah. And what might be, say, a simple fine back home, maybe in Taiwan, could be much more serious in a country that really emphasizes, personal honesty on official records.
Right. So it leaves a real mark.
A serious mark. It could impact her studies, definitely her future job prospects. It's not just a slap on the wrist.
And, it's not just the external record, is it? It's that internal thing, too. Those small compromises, the ones we kind of rationalize away, they can desensitize us over time.
That's a really important point.
Makes the bigger ethical slips feel less significant somehow. It's like an internal erosion of your own compass.
Precisely. That internal shift, that's the real danger. That's how these seemingly small wrong choices can snowball into really unexpected, serious problems later on.
So it really underlines why thinking carefully, staying honest, even when it's uncomfortable, is so important, even in those small moments.
Absolutely crucial.
So, okay, if that's the individual level, like a personal compass, what happens when we scale that up?
Yeah.
To a whole company? How does this idea of a moral compass work when you've got hundreds or thousands of people involved?
Well, the sources we looked at talk about business ethics as being like the company's heart. Or maybe it's moral compass.
It's DNA almost, or its operating system.
Yeah, exactly. It's the underlying code that guides a company to not just choose profits, but to do it in the right way, to be successful while doing the right thing.
So it's about the fundamental rules of the game then?
Absolutely. Just like we need moral rules as individuals, companies need really clear ethical guidelines. It's about ensuring fairness, protecting everyone involved, employees, customers, investors, the whole community.
Stakeholders, right?
Right, stakeholders.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about ensuring the company can actually last long-term. Sustainability.
Because without that internal compass, things can go badly wrong.
Catastrophically wrong. It's almost inevitable if ethics aren't baked in.
And we've definitely seen some devastating examples when that compass fails, haven't we? Some real cautionary tales. Enron in 2001 always springs to mind.
Oh, absolutely. Enron's kind of the classic case study, isn't it?
It really is.
Huge energy company, just collapsed. Why? Because executives were systematically hiding enormous losses, cooking the books, just widespread financial fraud.
And the fallout was immense.
Unbelievable. Millions of investors lost their life savings. Thousands of employees suddenly had no job. And it wasn't just contained to Enron, it sent shockwaves through the whole global economy.
It's such a stark reminder of what happens when ethics are just completely ignored.
Totally unravels everything.
And Enron wasn't alone, sadly. There was WorldCom, too.
Right, WorldCom. Similar story, really.
Right.
Massive accounting fraud leading to bankruptcy. Huge losses for investors. And it really hammered confidence in the market overall.
And then there was Royal Dutch Shell. Slightly different angle there.
Yeah, Shell's issue wasn't exactly fraud in the same way, but they made false claims about their oil reserves, overstated them significantly.
So it wasn't theft, but it was deception.
Exactly. And for a company built on like a century of reputation, that kind of deception just shattered investor trust. undermine their credibility globally.
But it's not always just about money or trust, is it? Sometimes the consequences are much more direct, affecting people's physical safety.
That's a crucial point. Think about Mitsubishi Motors.
Right. What was their story?
Their failure wasn't financial. It was hiding serious safety defects in their cars, just covering them up.
Wow, so putting profit ahead of safety.
Pretty much. And that led to actual accidents, people getting injured,
Yeah.
innocent people hurt because of those decisions, and of course their brand image was just ruined.
So these examples, I mean, they really paint a grim picture. Ignoring ethics doesn't just hit the bottom line. It impacts real people, investor confidence, market stability, the whole system.
It has incredibly far-reaching consequences.
Okay, so given how damaging unethical practices can be,
Right.
how do we actually build a stronger ethical culture? How do we prevent these things? Our sources really stress it's a collective effort, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It has to involve everyone, individuals, companies, and society as a whole. They're all interlocked. You can't leave any piece out.
That makes sense. So let's maybe break that down. Those 3 levels you mentioned, starting with us, the individual.
Well, starting with you. At the personal level, it's not just about, avoiding the big, obvious scandals.
Like, don't commit massive fraud. Got it.
Right. Step 1. But it's more subtle, too. It's about navigating those everyday pressures, the gray areas you encounter at work.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, well, it starts with building ethical awareness. Just learning to spot the moral dilemmas in daily decisions. Like, how do you handle a coworker who keeps misusing company resources for their personal stuff? Or maybe you feel pressured to, I don't know, fudge some numbers slightly to meet a target.
Yeah, those subtle pressures.
And spotting them requires strengthening your ethical judgment. This is actually where understanding those ethical theories we'll maybe touch on later, like utilitarianism, deontology, virtue ethics, can be really helpful.
So they're not just academic.
Not at all. They're practical tools. They give you frameworks to think through complex situations. Like, how does a huge company like TSMC balance its production needs, which are massive, with protecting the environment when there's a serious water shortage? There are real trade-offs.
Applying a lens to the problem.
Exactly. And then ultimately it comes down to just practicing integrity, day in, day out.
The small stuff adds up.
Totally. Being accurate in your expense reports. Being punctual for meetings, respecting others' time, having the guts to admit when you make a mistake instead of covering it up. Not cheating on exams, obviously. Citing sources properly. Doing your fair share on group projects.
Right. Even balancing academic honesty with friendship. Like if you see a classmate copying your work, that's a tough one.
It really is. But it's about making those conscious ethical choices consistently.
Okay, so that's the individual. What about the company level? What's their role?
So companies need to be proactive in building a genuinely ethical culture. It starts with making the rules really clear.
Like a code of conduct.
Exactly. Comprehensive codes of conduct that spell out expectations for employee behavior, how the business operates, environmental responsibility, social responsibility, the whole package. Taiwan Mobile's integrity management rules were mentioned as a good example.
Setting that clear standard. But rules aren't enough on their own, are they?
No, definitely not. You need to create the right environment. And leadership is absolutely crucial here.
Tone at the top.
Precisely. Leaders have to set high moral standards, sure, but they also have to live them. Be visible examples.
Any examples jumped out?
Yeah, the sources mention the founder of Delta Electronics, who apparently built the whole company around a deep commitment to energy saving. And the chairman of YFY Inc., Ho Shou Chuan, who really pushed for eco-friendly papermaking.
So it's embedding values from the top down.
It has to be authentic. And then another critical piece. Companies need to actively teach ethics.
Training.
Yes, but not just like a boring annual click-through presentation. Regular, diverse ethics training. Using real-world case studies, maybe role-playing scenarios. Sinyi Realty apparently does this with ethics case studies.
Makes it more practical.
Yeah, and Wow Prime Group was mentioned for having a really comprehensive food safety system that's a form of applied ethics training, too. It's about building those ethical muscles throughout the organization.
Makes sense. Okay, so individual, company. What about the societal level, the bigger picture?
Right, the third leg of the stool. Society's role is largely about setting better rules and ensuring stronger supervision.
So better laws.
Yep. Continuously creating and, importantly, enforcing strong laws related to business conduct. The example given was how listed companies in Taiwan now need independent directors.
What does that do?
It enhances corporate governance, provides another layer of oversight, more independent eyes, checking that things are being done ethically and properly.
Okay. And supervision.
That involves stronger social oversight. And a big part of that is supporting a free and independent media
How does the media help?
by investigating and exposing unethical practices. Think about media reports on food safety scandals. That kind of reporting puts pressure on companies to clean up their act, and it protects the public. Transparency is key.
Shining a light in dark corners.
Exactly. And then for the long term, it's about promoting ethical education more broadly.
In schools.
Yes, integrating business ethics into school curricula, but also into wider social education programs.
Yeah.
Universities offering business ethics courses, especially to future leaders, is a really important piece of building that foundation for the future.
Got it. So it's this multi-layered approach to individual responsibility, corporate culture, and societal frameworks all working together.
That's the idea. And it all points towards this connection between business ethics and corporate social responsibility.
Right. It's not just about internal rules, is it? It's about the company's impact on the world outside.
Precisely. It's about a company's responsibility to society, to the environment, to the communities where it operates.
Any good examples of that in practice?
The sources highlighted some Taiwanese companies, Formosa Plastics Group, for instance. They apparently focus not just on environmental protection, but also on significant community support, like building hospitals.
Wow, okay.
And Unipresident was mentioned for its Dream City project, which supports students in rural areas.
So it's about giving back, contributing positively.
Yeah. It really underscores this idea that when companies and society work together, genuinely collaborate, they can create a much fairer, more sustainable world for everyone. It's about building that shared future, not just maximizing short-term profit.
Okay, this is all really helpful context, but let's bring it back to the listener, back to you. How do you make these kinds of informed, responsible choices when faced with tricky situations?
Right. This is where understanding of those ethical theories we mentioned earlier can be really powerful. They act as frameworks, like different lenses you can use to look at a problem.
Okay, let's quickly recap those. There were 4 main ones.
Yeah. So first you have utilitarianism. Think John Stuart Mill. Its main idea is maximizing the overall good, aiming for the greatest happiness for the greatest number.
So focusing on the consequences.
Exactly. What action leads to the best outcome for the most people? Let's take a modern example, maybe that AI dilemma mentioned in the notes. A tech company develops AI that predicts consumer behavior incredibly well, but it uses vast amounts of anonymized personal data without really getting explicit consent.
Okay. How would utilitarianism view that?
Well, a utilitarian might argue, if the benefits like super-personalized services, less waste, economic efficiency outweigh the privacy concerns for most people, then maybe it's okay. It's a cost-benefit calculation.
Okay. What's the next one?
Deontology, associated with Immanuel Kant. This one is all about duty and rules. It says there are universal moral principles you should always follow, regardless of the consequences.
Like don't lie, don't steal.
Kind of. And a key part is treating people always as ends in themselves, never just as a means to your own goals.
So for the AI example,
Deontology would likely say using people's data without clear consent is wrong, period, even if it leads to good outcomes. Because you're using those people, their data, as a means to the company's end without full respect for their autonomy.
got it. Rule-based. What's third?
Virtue ethics. This one goes back to Aristotle. It shifts the focus away from actions or consequences and onto the character of the person or company making the decision.
So it asks, what kind of person do I want to be?
Exactly. Or what would a virtuous company do in this situation? For the AI, a virtue ethics approach would focus on qualities like transparency, honesty, trustworthiness. Is developing this AI in this way consistent with being a virtuous, trustworthy company?
Interesting. Focus on character. And the last one.
Justice theory. Think John Rawls and justice as fairness. This theory is all about the fair distribution of resources, opportunities, and burdens.
Fairness. How does that apply to the AI?
It would ask, are the benefits and burdens of this AI distributed fairly? Does it maybe create unfair advantages for some? Does it disproportionately harm or disadvantage certain groups? Even if the data is anonymized, it forces you to think about equity.
Okay, so utilitarianism, consequences, deontology, rules, duty, virtue, ethics, character, and justice theory. Fairness.
Right, and these aren't just, abstract philosophical ideas. They're practical tools that give you a toolkit to really dissect complex situations, especially those gray areas where there's no obvious right answer. They help you think more deeply than just going with your gut.
Helps you make more informed more responsible decisions, both in your personal life and, importantly, in your professional life.
Absolutely.
So, thinking about your role, the listener's role, in building this more ethical future, what do the sources suggest?
Well, a core idea is that when you're making choices, you should really reflect on what kind of purser do I want to be
Yep.
and what kind of impact do I want to have.
That's how you build your own personal value system, through that conscious reflection.
Yeah. And it brings up that classic tension. How do you balance your deeply held principles with, well, the messy reality of the world, practical considerations?
The ideal versus the real.
Kind of. It reminds me of Max Weber's ideas, the ethics of responsibility, where you think hard about the actual consequences of your actions in the real world versus the ethics of conviction, where you stick to your principles no matter what.
Finding that balance is key.
It really is. And one of the biggest tripwires in finding that balance is dealing with conflicts of interest.
Ah, yeah. Where your personal interests might clash with your professional duties.
Exactly. And the stats are pretty sobering. That Harvard Business School research suggested, what, up to 45% of professionals admitted making unethical choices because of conflicts of interest?
Wow, nearly half. That's huge.
It's a really pervasive challenge. But the flip side is also clear. Ignoring ethics isn't just morally wrong, it's bad business.
Right. You mentioned some studies.
Yeah, that MIT study from 2023 found organizations with higher ethical awareness actually perform 15% better in the long run.
Better performance.
And a McKinsey survey linked strong ethical cultures to 30% higher employee engagement and satisfaction. People want to work for companies they believe in.
So it's not just about doing good, it's actually a strategic advantage. It makes good business sense.
Absolutely. Which flips that common idea that ethics is just a burden, a restriction holding you back.
Instead, it's more like a navigation system.
Exactly. A powerful navigation system that helps you find your way through a really complex world. It reminds me of Peter Drucker's famous line, "Management is about people first, not things." Ethics keeps the focus on people.
And that idea from Lynn Sharp Payne, the integrity-based strategy.
Yeah, her point is that building ethics into your strategy actually helps you make smarter, more responsible decisions in the long run. It protects your career, protects the company, and it fosters the kind of leadership that can actually drive positive social change.
So it's enabling, not limiting.
Definitely. But it's not something you just learn once and you're done.
No.
No. Ethics requires continuous development, lifelong learning. John Dewey talked about learning by doing. You learn and refine your ethical judgment through facing real situations and reflecting on them.
Experience matters.
Hugely. Lawrence Kohlberg's research showed our moral judgment actually matures and improves with experience and reflection. And there's something profound, I think, in what Hannah Arendt wrote about forgiveness, recognizing that the value of humanity lies partly in our ability to face our mistakes, correct them, and hold on to that hope for goodness.
Learning from failures.
And growing from them. True moral development, as Martha Nussbaum might say with her capabilities approach, is about expanding our ability to truly understand and respect others, to see the world from their perspective.
Okay. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway?
I think the core message is that business ethics is really far more than just, corporate slogans or box-ticking exercises.
It's not just empty words or formal requirements.
Not at all. It's the absolute critical foundation for any kind of sustainable business growth. And beyond that, it's fundamental to maintaining fairness and justice in society as a whole.
And for everyone listening, it's directly relevant to your future, isn't it?
Absolutely. From your time as a student to entering the workforce, maybe eventually becoming a leader yourself, these principles shape who you become and the kind of impact you have.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is this. Now that you have this deeper understanding, how will you consciously choose to integrate ethical principles into your own life, your own career journey? And looking ahead, what specific change, big or small, will you try to champion to help build a more compassionate, more sustainable, and frankly, a more ethical future for everyone?